The boy accidentally discovered that by focusing on someone, he could see their skill level, like this Lancer who actually has high archer potential. So the protagonist didn't hesitate and asked him to switch to archer. The soldier Meyer didn't believe it at first. He thought ranged weapons were inferior. Close combat is the true romance for men, but the male lead is still just the family's young master. Plus, the eager look in the other's eyes. Mireille still couldn't resist, but he never expected. It was his first time shooting an arrow, yet he hit the bullseye perfectly. This stunned the soldiers around him. But what happened next was even more outrageous. No matter how many arrows Mireille fired, each one hit the bullseye. This is like having an aimbot in modern times. Under the praises of the crowd, Mireille followed the protagonist's advice and became an archer. When dinner time arrived, the father in this life also learned about it. He encouraged the protagonist to hone this talent-detecting intuition. This is an essential talent for a noble lord, but his father could never guess. The protagonist's talent discovery isn't based on intuition, but rather on a more cheat-like identification skill. Even my father's talent, he can easily identify it, and soon after, he will discover an unbeatable ally for life. It turns out the protagonist isn't local at all. He was just a 1996 wage slave on Earth. Working 996 was one thing. He even killed himself gaming all night at home. The next day, he collapsed dead before work. When he wakes up again, he has become a young lord of a noble family, and the male lead is now 3 years old. He has a general understanding of this world. The empire he is in has unified the continent for 200 years. What's even more amazing is that this is a world of swords and magic. The Robert family, where the male lead was born, is a noble family in the empire. They govern a small territory of about 1,000 people. Yet, compared to the 996 lifestyle in his past life, life here is like turning over a salted fish. This is just too blissful. That said, the protagonist discovers something terrible. His future is far from bright. Due to the Empire's long-standing corrupt regime, farmers are revolting everywhere. But the Empire is turning a blind eye. In the end, nobles can only strengthen self-governance. Yet the protagonist has a bad feeling. At this rate, it won't be long. A large-scale war will definitely occur in the Empire. To protect his family and himself, he, as the future lord, must have his own army. Fortunately, in this life, he has the identification skill. As long as he starts finding talented people now, he can secure a chance of survival in the future war. So the protagonist went to the town that day. He plans to use his skill to find gifted individuals. But such people are hard to find. He searched for a long time but found no genius. Even his own eyes were hurting from overuse. At that moment, a restaurant across the street pushed out a boy. He was a Margan, looked down upon by the Empire's people. Usually sold as the lowest kind of slave. Seeing him in such a pitiful state, the protagonist kindly offered him a piece of bread. This stirred remarks from the passers-by. But upon realizing he was a nobleman's son, they said little more. The main character felt reassured when he accepted the bread. Just then, his appraisal skill activated on its own. Unexpectedly, the boy's power level was that of a general. Boy says not only was his power level surprisingly high, he even had several talents at SNA levels. It's worth noting that most ordinary people are level D. Such overwhelming power level. Strategy, you'll surely achieve great things in the future. But the main character didn't say anything. The young man got up and left. Before leaving, he thanked the other person for their kindness. But how could the main character let such a talent get away? So he hurriedly followed after them. Oh dear, it's better if you don't follow me. The adults will get angry. Would you like to be my vassal? And what? The boy thought the other was just playing house. But then the child revealed his noble crest. Only then did he believe the child was serious. But in the boy's eyes, he was just a worthless Malgar. Taking him back wouldn't lead to anything good. So he turned and left. But the main character did not give up. If he misses this chance, he may never meet such a talented person again. We must find a way to keep him. Just eating bread won't be enough. We have an amazing chef at home. He can prepare many delicious dishes for you. There are steaks and beef stew, meat pies and round bread, and there's red wine and cake. Young Liz was thus brought to the protagonist's home. Even the household servants harbor ingrained prejudice against the Marga. Liz has come to accept this. But what he didn't expect was the young lord who invited him to be his vassal not only brought his food before him, but also firmly told the servants that this man is my most important vassal. But now there is another issue. That is the main character's father, as expected. The father immediately refused after learning about it. But seeing his son plead repeatedly, and having recently discovered Mireille's talent, the father decided to give him a chance. However, it came with conditions. He had to let Liz battle him in a practice fight. As long as he could hit him just once, he would be allowed to serve as a soldier. On the way to the training ground, Liz was puzzled by something. That's why the protagonist is working so hard to make him a vassal. After all, the Malgar people face persecution wherever they go. They only face persecution. I need Mr. Leeds. I will someday become the lord of this territory. I hope you'll be by my side to assist me then. I will do my best. 2.5 minutes later, a few people arrived at the arena. At this moment, the protagonist is also very worried. Lid's talent is indeed impressive, but even so, Lid is actually only 14 years old. Let's not mention his father's vast experience, and his talent is at an S-rank level. As expected, when the battle began, Lid noticed that each of the opponent's strikes was powerful. Even with a wooden sword, getting hit would still hurt. And it's not just about strength. His speed is remarkably fast. For a moment, Leeds was unable to fight back, but then the protagonist noticed something unusual about the soldiers around him. It seems even their father was going easy on them. The soldiers couldn't block any of his moves. Yet, that boy from Malga could hold on, not to mention the master seemed to be using all his strength. He probably was as well. Mr. Leeds. He is indeed impressive, but to hurt the #1 swordsman in this country, it's really difficult. What's wrong? What's going on? There's hardly any time left. I hope you can be here to help me. Well then. I'll go all out in my attack. Mr. Leeds, his expression has changed. I see through your swordplay. This move is good. It's over. Pass by the anime. Pass by the anime. Did that last hit graze you? That guy hit Lord Raven. What's the deal with that Maria person? Father said Liz has talent. He'll definitely become a great swordsman one day. He also pointed out that the protagonist has a sharp eye. Passing by the anime, he worries about how his son will cope in the chaotic future. But it seems there's no need to worry now. The protagonist never expected that. Passing by the anime, his father believes he could become a high noble. Passing by the anime, he could even become an emperor in the future. You know, passing by the anime, Rihiko, and on Liz's side. The excellence of anime made the soldiers let go of their biases. Study's experience with As Study passed by the anime place, it was Liz's first time experiencing such treatment. Passing by the anime later, as Study passed by, Liz changed into servant's clothes. As Study passed by, besides his soldier duties, he also took the initiative to serve the male lead's daily needs. Not only would he occasionally teach him to read, but also inform him about the current dire state of the country. As the male lead expected, the Empire's regime has completely decayed. The current king is just an 8-year-old child. Real power is in the hands of the nobles. Reports of rebellions are coming from various places. A war will break out in a few years. Upon hearing this, the main character becomes more certain of his thoughts. He considers his future. He wants to use his discerning eye to gather talent. After learning about this, his father suggests he seek those skilled in magic. Future wars will focus on magic. After all, war isn't a one-on-one fight. No matter how strong personal martial arts are, they can't sweep the battlefield as quickly as magic. Liz agrees with this completely. He suggests the protagonist find talent in the city center. There will definitely be more talent in big cities. This world's empire is divided into 7 continents. Each continent contains several regions. They are located in one of these regions. And then, in one of countless territories, the protagonist followed his advice. He soon arrived at the county's main city. According to Liz, the population here is 50,000. That is also 50 times their territory's population. Because of this, the protagonist has a much better chance of finding talent here. But imagination is beautiful. After the protagonist evaluated, he was still disappointed, even though there are quite a few people here. But finding talented people is clearly not easy. No one's talent meets his standards. There's not even a single A-grade candidate in sight. However, life is unpredictable. It was during lunch when a figure suddenly zipped past the main character. By the time he reacted, he realized his wallet was gone. Realizing this, Liz quickly picked him up and took off after the thief, even though she was carrying someone. But for him, it was completely unaffected. He quickly touched the thief's outer robe. But when they lifted it, they were shocked. The two never expected it would be such a beautiful girl. And right after that, they found themselves in a small alley. What surprised them was, they didn't expect 3 thugs to block the girl here. And without a word, one threw a punch. It sent the girl flying. After realizing something's off, the male lead wanted to ask what happened, but the bully didn't give him a chance. Who is this brat? Don't touch my master with your dirty hands. What did you say, you jerk? Then the other two bullies quickly followed suit. In no time, they were knocked down by Liz. Realizing they couldn't win, the three bullies sensed danger and fled. The male protagonist didn't stop her. Instead, he opened the appraisal eye out of curiosity. But once opened, it was serious. The girl's talent astonished him. Her magical aptitude reached an astonishing S. Her leadership score was also 92. Furthermore, her combat strength hit 116. And she was only 11. Her combat strength was already on par with his father's. But these were not the most important. It's important that the protagonist finally found the magic soldier he was looking for. Realizing this was a great opportunity, the protagonist blurted out, asking the girl if she wanted to be his vassal, and as soon as he said this, the girl and Liz were both taken aback. Liz was even more puzzled why the protagonist wanted to save a thief. However, upon hearing from the protagonist, it was because the girl had amazing talent in magic. But the girl immediately interrupted him, and it turned out that up until now, she has never even used magic. But how could the male lead know her talent? It's just that she comes from a good background. It's surprising that such an obvious joke could be made. She directly saw the male lead as an unrealistic rich kid. After refusing without hesitation, Liz didn't bring it up again. Instead, she urged the girl to hand over the male lead's wallet quickly. Though somewhat unwilling, the girl had no choice but to comply. After all, the two main characters just saved her, and she doesn't want to owe anyone a favor. Those people were actually the slave trader's henchmen. She tried to steal money from a noble's house. But she was caught on the spot. Then she was sold to the slave trader. That day, she finally seized the chance to escape. And she hoped to grab some money on the side. But she was relentlessly pursued by the two. And she happened to be caught by the slave trader's men. The reason everyone couldn't let her go. Clearly, it's because I'm very beautiful. Though it's a bit perplexing, the male lead wonders why, since she has escaped, she didn't flee to another town. But before the girl could answer, the next moment, what happened gave him the answer. It turns out the girl didn't choose to escape, because here are her family members she cares about. The person in front is just like her. They are all homeless orphans. At this, the male lead was momentarily stunned. He didn't expect the previously tough girl to have such a side. Because of this, he no longer insisted that she become his subordinate. Instead, he took some money from his wallet to help her. The girl accepted it without hesitation. After giving him a curious glance, she then took the orphan and left. Later that night, the events of the day still lingered in the male lead's mind. Yes, he hasn't really given up on the girl. The relief is just to leave a good impression. After all, talented people are hard to find. Maybe one day she will change her mind. Just as he was ready to look for her tomorrow to see if there are other talents nearby, the noise downstairs caught his attention. Upon discovering these were the orphans from earlier, he immediately asked them what happened. Are you the one from before? You were just now. Charlotte. Charlotte has been taken. On episode 3, Charlotte is captured again by the slave trader. No matter how they beat her, it seemed like she was born without the ability to cry. No matter the violence, she couldn't shed a single tear. When she looked at the money pouch lying nearby, they thought she must have stolen it. Suddenly, Charlotte sprang to her feet, snatched the pouch from the thug's hands, and tried to escape, but her disadvantage in size quickly led to her being pinned down. The slave trader mocked her. Even if you run away, you can only go back to a miserable life. After all, the moment your parents abandoned you, your life was ruined. Suddenly, the door was slammed open. Who is it? Are you the one from the day? Wait a moment. Seeing that the newcomer is the male lead, Charlotte was very surprised. Seeing the injured Charlotte, the male lead seems a bit angry. He instantly learns about the slave trader before him. He also lets Charlotte go. The slave trader can't help but find it amusing, though he can tell the male lead is of noble status. But Charlotte, being a slave, is also a commodity. It's always nobles like him who secretly buy them. Charlotte, seeing this scene, doesn't understand. Clearly, he and the male lead have only met once. Why help oneself? Little did the protagonist know that from the moment he saw her, it left him restless for a long time. Why in a girl did he see such hollow eyes? After much thought, he finally understood. It was because Charlotte's ambition was only one thing. This ambition is just each person's wish for the future. But sometimes those wishes can be betrayed. It could also become a threat. Nevertheless, but that's a hope to move toward the future. If someone has no ambition, she has already given up on the future. Is there anything sadder than this? The future? This is what it means to be a slave. A slave has no future. Isn't that obvious? What's so funny? It's an adult's duty to protect children's futures. But you take their future away, how can you still smile? It's up to her to decide who to become. It's not about you. The male lead's words remind her of her childhood. Her small frame has endured many hardships. It's true, she seems to have forgotten what it feels like to cry. Because she knows crying won't change anything. Not even anyone would pity themselves. As a child, she found it very difficult just to survive passing through animations. Since then, she no longer had beautiful fantasies about the future. After all, the moment a person is born, fate is already decided. After years of wandering, she learned one thing: crying is for the weak. And those who are too weak will die. She should have decided long ago to stay strong. But until this moment, tears suddenly flowed uncontrollably. Looking at the chattering male lead, the slave trader didn't want to waste any more time, even though the male lead is a noble. But letting a child cause trouble in his territory, if anyone found out, he would lose face. Seeing this, Charlotte wanted the male lead to escape quickly, but unexpectedly, the male lead gave him a reassuring look. Then he asked Liz to take care of them. At your command. Hey, what are you laughing at? It seems you haven't figured out the situation. You guys, do you know what you've done? How dare you anger the great heiress? You deserve to die 1,000 deaths. Seeing this, the other thugs told everyone to gang up on Liz. After all, 2 fists can't fight 4 hands. Moreover, there are so many of them. But unfortunately, Liz defeated all the attackers in just 2.5 seconds. Liz, with her red eyes, made them tremble just by getting close. The slave trader planned to deal with Liz using magic. A weird monster. Is it over so soon? What's up with him? He's too strong. Seeing his subordinates all defeated. The helpless slave trader can only show his trump card. The strong bald man used to be the town's infantry captain. He was kicked out of the army for bad behavior. Hey, that guy is in trouble. Hey, don't worry. Did they lose to a little brat like this? That's really embarrassing. Before mocking others, worry about your own health first. Fat pig, I want to break your neck. Too slow. Stinky kid. The male lead seems to see through everything. Even a muscular bald man is useless. Lids completely crushes the opponent in stats. The gap between them is vast. This left Charlotte stunned. The slave trader watched his ace easily defeated. Realizing something was off, he quickly stated, "The slave trader is recognized by the governor." The male lead understands this as well. So he plans to buy Charlotte with money. Then Liz also threatened the other party. Slave traders value their reputation highly. If they aren't willing to trade, he will take Charlotte away directly. At that time, it won't just be losing face, it could even anger the purchasing nobles. So it's better to accept that someone is offering a higher price for her. If you don't accept this deal, I must cut off the potential threat right now. Alright, you can take her. It's great that you are so agreeable. We will pay you a little more. Little did you know, before barging in, Liz had already planned to pay for Charlotte's release. Only by showing strong power. Only then can the other person feel afraid. Let's go back. Everyone is waiting for you. Okay? While getting ready to go back, Charlotte wants to take the main character somewhere. After a 2.5-minute trek, they arrive at a place overlooking the entire town. Whenever seeing this view, I feel the unpleasant memories. In this moment, everyone can be healed. So she wants to ask the male lead here. He once said he wanted to create a city where people like her feel safe. Why does he think this way? Because I like children. You're a child too, right? Yes, that's right. In his past life, the male lead was a corporate worker. Whenever he felt tired or in pain, seeing a child smile feels like a huge encouragement, so the protagonist believes the energy and hope of children can make the city better. To achieve this goal, he is determined to create a place where children can always hope. This is the mission of a lord and an adult. Charlotte is also pleased with this, so she decides to become the protagonist's retainer so that children can live the future he envisions. However, Liz hasn't accepted Charlotte yet. If you want to stay, you need to prove your magical abilities. The magical item in your hand is borrowed from a slave merchant. Wearing it allows you to cast spells and showcase your worth. Charlotte understands this as well, but she's never used magic herself. Seeing this, Liz teaches her step by step. The male lead is also very excited. Just how powerful is someone with S-class magical talent? Lord Yars is about to start. Igni Erapto. How is it? Now just like that. After Charlotte calmed the kids, she followed the male lead back to the territory. Each month's salary goes towards the kids. However, the father who learned the news vehemently opposed women going to war. After all, war is quite dangerous. Seeing this, the male lead asked Charlotte to show her magical skills again. Firma Ignera Pluto. Nice to meet you. Good. Charlotte, who is incredibly talented in magic. It has only been 3 years. She has already earned the title of the strongest magical soldier on the battlefield. Originally, due to territorial disputes with a neighboring state, the ensuing war left my father worried. But with Charlotte's presence, they easily achieved victory. A powerful magic soldier can play a significant role on the battlefield. This further strengthens the protagonist's resolve. To use his discerning eye to recruit talent, he learns that a hunter family is moving to their territory, and both young brothers are quite skilled, so he decides to check it out himself. If they have potential, he'll recruit them as he approaches his destination. Suddenly, an arrow hits a moving wild pig. As the protagonist focused his gaze, the visitors were exactly the 2 brothers he wanted to see, and seeing them today truly lived up to the reputation. Out of curiosity, the protagonist immediately activated his appraisal eyes. He discovered one had an A rank in infantry, and the other also had an A rank in archery. Just as he felt somewhat pleased, the 2 brothers noticed him as well. After expressing that he had a request soon, they arrived at a house. The family warmly welcomed the main character. They learned he was the Lord's son, and that he wanted to take their 2 sons as retainers. The old man was very happy. While they were enjoying their conversation, suddenly a hand stealthily took the bread from the table. They thought it was a thief. But it was then that the main character realized it was the old man's 3rd son. As he was scolding his young son for being immature, the bored protagonist opened the appraisal eye, but once he opened it, the numbers in front of him left him stunned. Not only did he have several A-rated talents, but more importantly, his strategy talent reached an S. However, what shocked him most was his intelligence rating of 109. This number represents the limit he can achieve in the future. Although, due to his age, his current intelligence is only 45, he has already surpassed most adults. If I had to describe it, it's like Zhuge Liang is alive. Without any hesitation, the protagonist immediately decided to take him as a retainer, but this surprised the old man. It turns out, in their family, the youngest son is acknowledged as the dullest. Yet the protagonist trusts his judgment. After expressing his intention to take him in again, he unintentionally scared Roselle to tears. Now, becoming the protagonist's retainer also means going to battle. Thinking about the unforeseen troubles ahead, he immediately cried and left this place. The old man quickly apologized to the protagonist. Unlike his 2 brothers, Rosal was not only weak but also timid. He was also clumsy when working. As the son of a hunter, he should be practicing chopping wood and archery at his age. But let alone going to the battlefield, even surviving was a challenge for him. And for this reason, the old man doesn't think Roselle can help the protagonist. But letting a strategist go hunting, isn't that a waste? He had no intention of explaining to the old man. The protagonist decisively went upstairs to find Roselle. This search immediately revealed Roselle's uniqueness. Unlike the sadness he imagined. He didn't expect Roselle to be reading here, and thought about her talent. So the male lead asked him if he really liked reading. This took Roselle by surprise. He couldn't do anything well since he was young, but reading allowed him to forget all his worries. Truly a genius in strategy. This gave the male lead a bold idea. Don't you like reading? Seeing this, he invited Roselle to his personal library. He could have any book he wanted. Roselle couldn't resist the temptation. He quickly arrived at the male lead's house, unaware that he was in a bad situation. Although he will be very intelligent in the future, he is just a 5-year-old child now. After Liz helped him, half a day passed in a blink. When the male lead came back, he found Roselle had already fallen asleep from exhaustion. He learned from Liz that Roselle had been reading all afternoon. He can remember words he doesn't understand once taught. He can also make associations to understand the meaning of words better, but at this moment, the protagonist can't listen to anything else. It's only upon evaluation that he realizes this. In just half a day, Rosal's intelligence has jumped from 45 to 56. It's also at this time, Rosal's brother comes to take him home. Are you asleep? Honestly, he can't even read. Where is the fun anyway? Wait, doesn't he know how to read? This line completely changed the main character's perspective. It's at this moment he realizes Roselle can't read. Did he just stare for nothing all this time? Just then, Roselle happened to wake up, so he immediately voiced his question. He learned it's because he was reminiscing about his childhood. Specifically, the scene of his mother reading to him. Then he compared the words he heard with those in the book. He naturally learned to read. This surprised his brother. He remembers Roselle was only 2.5, but that's not all. Knowing Roselle even remembers things from after birth. This left everyone amazed. And for this reason, the main character becomes even more determined to have Roselle. But the priority is how to restore his confidence, and how to convince his family of his talent. Just when the protagonist was a bit troubled, Liz gave him a suggestion. Yeah, get up from where you fell. As long as Roselle knows he can hunt in other ways, he can achieve 2 results at once. This suddenly gave the protagonist a good idea. The next day, he called Roselle. He suggested trying to hunt using traps. Roselle was fine with it, but his 2 brothers were puzzled by this. Setting traps is slower than just capturing them directly. The male lead didn't want to explain to them. Instead, he encouraged Roselle that weapons aren't just about strength and stamina. Sometimes using your mind is a weapon too. If he succeeds, he believes his father will see him in a new light. Though he felt a bit insecure, upon hearing this, Roselle decided to give it a try. It wasn't long before the old man who was called here was astonished. And he never expected it. There are so many wild boars in the fence ahead. After learning this was done by Roselle's trap, I found out that Roselle used knowledge he read in a book. Now, wild boars tend to charge at yellow things, so he painted the fence yellow. This successfully lured the boars in. Once inside, there's no way out. Moreover, he also hung some herbs around. Prevent sows and piglets from getting in, according to the book. Sows and piglets hate the smell of vanilla. Of course, even if they accidentally get in. He made a small hole for the piglets to escape. This is to prevent the wild boars in the forest from going extinct. He even thought about coexisting with nature. The old man was the most shocked. It was then he realized his clumsy son had such talent. If it weren't for the main character, he might never have discovered it. After some contemplation, he decided to hand Roselle over to the main character. He didn't want to bury such talent. Although Roselle felt some reluctance, after the main character reassured him he wouldn't be sent to the battlefield and that he would only provide guidance behind the scenes, Roselle was finally convinced. Today, he realized that studying could be meaningful. It wasn't just the traps that restored his confidence. More importantly, this way, he can also provide a better life for his family. After successfully convincing them, the male lead gained another general under his command. And of course, there are Roselle's 2 brothers. Sorry to trouble you. Sorry to bother you. It was also the year he turned 9. His father finally told him he had a fiancée. But this meeting was no big deal. His initial expectations disappeared. He thought the other party's intention was likely to take over their territory. The protagonist was very distressed. Just when he was becoming cautious, he noticed the protagonist staring at him silently. This made Licia think there was something on her face. It must be because you're too beautiful, adult. It left him speechless. How embarrassing. So cute. But cuteness alone can't sway the male lead's heart. So he decided to take it one step at a time. It was at this moment that Liz happened to pass by. The butler was about to say, "Isn't this an inferior race like the Morgans?" But the next second, he was scolded by Licia. Liz is clearly the warrior of the male lead's family. She has achieved countless victories on the battlefield. She doesn't allow the butler to slander, and she demands an apology for his rudeness. Seeing this scene, the male lead appears unfazed, but inside he's thinking, "You're just pretending there. Let's see when you reveal your true self." The male lead indeed thinks this way. But no matter how he speaks or acts next, he can't find any fault. Licia is quite polite. She quickly becomes friendly with the servants. As a political genius with a talent of 100, Licia is very good at socializing. If only he had the ability to judge, he would likely take a liking to her right away. And this scene was fully witnessed by the newly recruited strategist. Although he thinks Licia is beautiful and polite, he can't understand why she feels a bit intimidating. Charlotte feels the same way, but the difference is, she's actually jealous. Then, since Licia wanted to stroll in town, the male lead decided to fulfill her wish. On the way, they met many residents. Everyone was curious about who the girl beside him was. After introducing her as his fiancée, Licia politely smiled back. This made 2 elderly ladies fond of her. They are truly a perfect match. The male lead could only smile in response. How could he dare to mention this crisis in their territory? Suddenly, at that moment, a quarrel broke out between 2 people nearby. Out of curiosity, the male lead asked those around. It turned out they were arguing about the supply of magic stones. The carpenter originally ordered fire magic stones, but the supplier brought sound magic stones instead. This was merely a business deal based on verbal agreement. This is what happens. As the next lord, the protagonist knows he must calm things down. If he fails to do that, this guy is useless. Lamberge is already in my grasp. I cannot fail. But just then, as he worries about what to do, unexpectedly Licia says she has an idea. If she can resolve it smoothly, she hoped the male lead would grant her a request. Before the male lead could wonder what it was, Licia had already walked up to them. First, she pointed out that continuing to fight would ruin their handsome faces. Then, she elegantly introduced herself as the next lord of this place, and also the male lead's fiancé. She came to resolve their conflict. As soon as she said this, the two were instantly captivated by Lycia's charm. They were all surprised to learn that the male lead had a fiancé. Lycia also shared her solution. Her family will buy the sound magic stones. It turns out that in their territory, sound magic stones are quite rare. Thus, she will offer a higher price to buy them. As for the fire magic stones, they are everywhere in the volcanoes of their territory. Due to their abundant supply, she will sell them at a cheaper price than here. At this point, she also mentioned her ideas were actually suggested by the male lead. Not sure what's true or false, but this conversation completely resolved their conflict, and she sincerely thanked the male lead. Truly the next lord. He's willing to help even these commoners. After everyone left, the male lead couldn't help but admire Lycia's political skills. Huang also wandered until dusk. And the worst happened. Lycia hasn't forgotten about the return gift that resolved the conflict. The male lead needs to fulfill a request from her. I hope you can answer my next question honestly. Okay? What kind of person do you like, Lord Ayers? Huh? What kind of question is that? This only makes it harder for the male lead to understand Lycia. He can't grasp her true thoughts at all, but this is also an opportunity for the male lead. Realizing that he was no match for his cleverness, the male lead decided to go all out. He said he wouldn't hide what he felt, and wanted someone to talk sincerely with. After he said that, the air instantly fell silent. But Alicia's response disappointed him. She only said she'd take it as reference, and then turned to leave. Before long, it became evening. After all, guests are important. After enjoying a lavish dinner, there was also a banquet that night. Everyone in the territory had a pleasant evening. What made the male lead feel regret was that in the end, he couldn't figure out Lycia's thoughts. Tomorrow is Lycia's day to go home. Just as the male lead decided to test her tomorrow, he was surprised when he pulled back the covers. He discovered a surprise hidden inside. The male lead's reaction was exactly as Lycia expected. After telling the male lead to be quiet, she immediately admitted she sneaked out. The reason she came here was simply to see the male lead's surprised expression. I have to say, she's really charming. But the real reason is, it's because the male lead said he likes girls who can talk sincerely. That's why she came here. It turns out she has a secret ability. You can gauge others' feelings just by their expressions. Even if they try to hide it, you can still sense their emotions. So when the male lead saw her today, she could tell he was feeling suspicious. It's not unusual for a first meeting, and she was confident that after a 2.5-minute chat, everyone would lower their guard to some extent. But despite her efforts to warm up the atmosphere, even flashing her best winning smiles, his suspicion of her only grew stronger. In the end, he said he wanted to hear her true feelings. Because of this, she was very confused. What exactly is the male lead doubting about her? Regarding Lycia's question, the male lead considered playing dumb. But after observing all day today and noticing her current unease, he decided to reveal his ability to see others' talents. Because Lycia has very high ambitions, that's why he is suspicious. He wonders if Lycia has any schemes or motives. At this point, Lycia's confusion is finally resolved. Although the male lead misunderstood her a bit, there's one thing he's right about. Because she does have an ambition. What ambition do you have? Do I have to say it out loud? The ambition women have is hoping that an outstanding man falls for her at first sight. Come on, please say something. It turned out to be all a misunderstanding. But Livia made a very valid point. Marrying a powerful man is the best way for the Lord's daughter to survive. What puzzled the protagonist was that nobles from weak territories like them should be beneath his notice. However, at that moment, Livia saw through the protagonist's thoughts for the first time. If her fiancé had been an insignificant person, she would have definitely tried to find a way to cancel the engagement. But after spending a day with the male lead, she changed her mind. It's true that the territory ruled by the male lead's family is small, but that's only for now. She is very sure that the male lead is talented. The future is not limited to what exists now. It was easy to see from the residents' reactions while shopping today. The male lead is truly loved by the people in the territory. When she revealed her identity as his fiancé, everyone was just as happy as if it were their own matter. This completely changed her previous thoughts. In her territory, everyone is full of lies and afraid to speak the truth. To gain status and power, they would unhesitatingly sacrifice others. Growing up in such an environment over time, she also put on a mask. One day she realized one thing: as long as she married a powerful man, she could escape this world full of deceit. But now, the male lead has changed her perspective. That means even without scheming, you can be loved for your true self. That is an irreplaceable quality for a lord. Like everyone in your territory, I have fallen for you. Well, thank you. I should head back to my room. Good night. Good night. The next morning, Lysia set off for home. After all, marriage is a grown-up matter. The male lead was reluctant but had no choice. From then on, they began to exchange letters. Though they couldn't meet for now, the male lead felt content. After that incident, he already saw her as his true other half, just when the protagonist thought life would calm down. Little did he know, soon after, he would face a severe test. This was due to the assassination of Governor Michian not long ago. The previously calm succession struggle was officially underway. Next, the county leaders of Michian would be forced to choose sides between the firstborn and the second. At that time, the Lord of Canary County, Rommel, would surely choose the firstborn Karan as the heir, and the protagonist's land of Lambert would follow this decision. However, the protagonist's father's condition worsened. He could no longer attend the war council. As the Lord's heir, the protagonist had to step up, but he went to the meeting and got Canary County in his father's place. At first, the guard doubted this kid's identity, but when he saw the two people behind him, his pupils dilated in shock and he broke into a sweat. He realized it was Charlotte, the fire princess of the Lorbente family, and then the fearsome reaper Liz. He hurriedly led them to the meeting room. No, the protagonist is understandably a bit nervous being here for the first time. Nice to meet you, I'm Yars Robent. I am here in place of Lord Lamberge. My father Raven sent me. After the introduction, the protagonist suddenly became flustered. Not sure if it's because he's just a kid. The two in attendance remained silent. At that moment, an old man spoke to the protagonist. Your introduction was quite good. Upon closer inspection, the protagonist recalled, the person in front of me is Lord Kermel, Clark. Shoelacier and Kyer used to play together in their childhood. I didn't expect the protagonist to grow up so much after some time apart. Worried about the protagonist's nerves, I offered him some cookies to relax. This warmed the protagonist's heart, but he felt a bit confused. A man nearby was glaring at him for some unknown reason. Just as he was about to ask, the main door suddenly opened. The newcomer was indeed the governor of Canare, Rommel. However, when the protagonist activated his appraisal eye to look, it's noticed that the Lord has high martial valor, but average abilities. But upon closer inspection, the Lord's weaker abilities complement those of his retainers. It seems their shortcomings cover for each other. The Lord has summoned everyone to announce two things. Due to the assassination of the governor, war is bound to erupt. First, the fight for succession is beginning, and the Canary district will support the elder brother, Kellen. Second, neighboring Sea's state might take the chance to attack. I hope everyone is prepared for the coming war. That concludes this pre-war meeting. However, the main character didn't expect that. The county lord would chat with him alone. It was only because he learned about the main character's father's condition. He asked the main character to tell his father to rest well. Although Landberg is just a small territory in Canary County, recently it has gained strength beyond its scale. The talent within the territory is increasing. It's impressive that the 11-year-old main character represented his father at the meeting. I have high hopes for Robin's family future. I hope they can keep it up. I will do my best. I appreciate the two behind as well. Yes. Leave it to me. At that moment, a voice stopped the main character. The fierce man just approached him. The reason he was so angry at the main character, it's just because he's the Lord of Bagista. He is also Alicia's father. Recently, I've noticed my daughter is very upset. It seems she is unhappy with the letters from the male lead. Hearing this, the male lead finally remembered. He was about to reply when his father fell ill. Plus, the governor was assassinated. This caused him to miss sending a timely reply. The male lead feels very sorry about it. However, he notices his daughter's discontent. The father-in-law seems quite pleased, though. She learned to be patient from a young age. As a result, she always behaved perfectly, so she dedicated all her thoughts to her lord's work. Neglect made her feel very lonely. She silently bore any unhappy moments. This must have left her with painful memories. But everything changed when she met the male lead. It seemed to open her heart. She also learned to express her dissatisfaction. Clearly, it was her own fault. Seeing his daughter unhappy made him glare at the protagonist. The protagonist's father was a brave and skilled warrior. If it were his son, he would entrust his daughter to him. That's why this engagement exists. I hope the protagonist will ensure Alicia's happiness in the future. This move surprised the protagonist a bit, but he also assured his father-in-law he would definitely work hard to make Alicia happy. Don't forget these words. Tell Alicia about it next time. Soon, the protagonist returned home. After telling his father about the meeting, he couldn't wait to return to his study and write to Licia. Tell him about meeting his father-in-law. War could break out at any time now. Hopefully, both families can weather the storm together. In the next 2.5 days, the protagonist and Liz worked hard to learn to fight. They prepared for the upcoming war. Unfortunately, no matter how hard the protagonist trains, he can't become strong like a soldier. Despite his training, he doesn't improve. He feels stuck while others get stronger. During his first simulation leading soldiers, he quickly lost all his troops. No matter how hard he studies, he still lacks practical experience. What's worse is he feels an instinctive fear facing the fierce soldiers. Though Liz and Charlotte assist on the battlefield, if the commander cannot hold their head up high, then the soldiers will feel uneasy. Even if everyone is capable, it means nothing if the leader is inadequate. Just then, an urgent letter arrived, reporting that Say's state was attacking Camille territory. The Duchess sent a letter for them to mobilize immediately. Currently, my father is not fit to lead the campaign. The protagonist knows it's time to go to battle. Although he is well prepared, he can't help but feel a tremor of fear inside. He can only force himself to stay calm. He orders everyone to gather in front of the mansion to prepare for departure. Next, he will take the Lord's place. He will head to the battle to protect Canare. However, as soon as he finishes speaking, his father suddenly appears behind him and interrupts. Because his father believes that, he still can't go to the battlefield, but the protagonist understands. Oh, his father's health is simply unfit for battle. The father doesn't care about that. He's willing to sacrifice himself to protect the territory. The reason the protagonist is unfit for battle is because he lacks the expression of a warrior. The protagonist finds this hard to understand. Seeing this, his father instructed a soldier nearby to bring the death row inmate from the dungeon. The man has committed murder, rape, theft, and other crimes. He should have been executed long ago, but his execution has been delayed due to his illness. Now he will be executed in front of the male lead. He wants the male lead to watch closely. When can he see this guy die without flinching? Then he will recognize him as a true man. However, the male lead never expected this. The prisoner before the gallows is still defiant. It seems he no longer cares about life or death. Execution is nothing new to him. Every time he kills an innocent child like the protagonist, the moment when their pupils dilate in fear brings him immense pleasure. Seeing this, his father said nothing more. He simply ordered the execution of the convict. Yet in the instant the axe fell, the protagonist was stunned. Fear coiled around him like a cold snake, silently wrapped around him. It made him tremble, with no escape. The scene before him made him unable to stop vomiting. His father said everyone experiences this the first time. But on the battlefield, one often witnesses death. So he can't let such easily shaken people go to war. Seeing this, the three planned to comfort him, but his father stopped them. The best approach now is to let the protagonist be. The best way to eliminate fear is to face it. If even this cannot be overcome, then you will never lead troops into battle. I'm still immature. Since the defense of Saz State began, the protagonist's father has fought disease and enemies. His bravery, along with 3 exceptional subordinates, managed to repel the enemy with forces 1.5 times fewer. But by the time he returns to his territory, it is like a candle in the wind. The male lead feels very guilty about this, blaming himself for not being mature enough, unable to replace his father in battle. So for the month of ongoing war, the male lead trains hard every day. The 3 generals worry he might also collapse. The 3 generals worried he might fall too. It was at this moment. There was a hurried knock at the door. It turned out his fiancée was also worried about him. She rushed over overnight. They used to exchange letters frequently. And she could feel his emotions in the letters. But after the war started, the letters became increasingly strange. It felt like he was distracted. So she hurried over to see what was happening. After learning of Licia's intentions, Xiaohei explained the situation to her. Because the male lead couldn't face death, he couldn't fight in place of his father. This worsened his father's condition. It left him with deep guilt. After understanding the reason, Licia planned to comfort the male lead. But she arrived at the training camp entrance. But she hesitated to speak. Yasuda, your body won't hold up. Let's practice again tomorrow. Go ahead, please continue. Keep fighting bravely. I also want to protect everyone. Aren't you going to talk to him, Livia? It was at this moment, the maid brought news of the Lord waking up. Roselle wanted to tell the main character, but the maid asked him to wait a moment, because the Lord wanted to talk to them first. The Lord first asked how life was for the three of them here. For them, this place feels like paradise compared to before. So the three consider this place their home. And all feel very happy here. Then the Lord revealed the real reason he called them separately. That means he has very little time left. Although the protagonist brought 3 people at first, he thought it was quite absurd. But time has proven everything. Now, they are the backbone of this territory. So the Lord has a request for them. That is, to continue supporting the protagonist until the very last moment of life. Only then did Raven realize he had much left to do. He hadn't taken the protagonist to battle sooner. While I can still protect him, show him the world's cruelty. Now I want to do things I can't, so the Lord asked 3 to support the protagonist. Please support Yars. This is not a command from the Lord, but a request from his father. You might think I'm too indulgent with him, but that child is very gentle, loved by the people, just as you have shown me. He indeed has a keen eye for people. He is my pride and joy. I'm counting on you. There's no need for the Lord to ask. They will definitely support the male lead. After all, their hearts were saved by him, so they've already regarded him as their one true Lord. And under Xiao Hui's arrangement, Li Xia also met the Lord for the first time. But for the Lord, he had already seen the little girl, and it was he who asked Lucia to be the hero's fiancé. When he first saw the girl, he sensed that she was quite mature, even though he was a child himself. She showed a maturity unlike her peers. But he soon realized that this feeling wasn't so much maturity as it was a kindness towards others. So he had an idea. That is to have such a girl stay by his son's side. But the Lord also said his territory was small, and his son might not be very reliable. However, before he could finish, Li Xia denied this statement. He knew the main character was too gentle, which made him a bit soft-hearted. But to relieve his father's worries, he is working hard to overcome this. It seems you love Eris. Yes, I truly love him. After a few people left, the Lord called for the male lead. At that moment, he was holding a bunch of things. During the time his father was away on campaign, the male lead consulted numerous books on related illnesses. So he gathered some herbs to try. But his father knew it was too late and avoid making the protagonist feel guilty. So he spoke about how he became the Lord. Originally, he lived in a remote village. He couldn't stand the oppression of the local Lord. At the age of 10, he escaped the village. It just so happened that day, the governor also arrived in town. The governor's imposing figure deeply moved him. Later, he became a soldier through self-taught swordsmanship. He was promoted to Lord after his military achievements. Now for him, protecting this land and his family is his life. He tells the protagonist not to blame himself, because that's how he survives. Father, Ours. I'll leave it to you after this. Please. Okay, you look much better now. As my son, you've been through a lot. No. I'm very happy to be your son. You're saying such mature things. Then we talked all night as a family. Until the next morning. The Lord passed away with a smile. That night, many people attended the Lord's funeral after the main character said his final goodbye to his father. He told everyone. His father taught him many things. His father was also an incredible man. During their heart-to-heart talk last night, his father entrusted the territory to him. Though he wasn't as strong as his father, he vowed to protect everyone in his father's stead. Please lend me a hand. Of course. Yes, for Lord Ares. I'm willing to do anything. Lord Ares will be fine. We'll also include Lord Raven's part. Let's guard the young master. Yes, together, let's protect the young master. Get ready. Go, Lord Ares. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all. Father, please protect us. What? Starting today, I am the master of the Robente family. From this moment, the legend of the Robente family begins.